Hugh, it's Ryan. Guess what? I'm starting a new business. Seriously, yeah. And I just thought I'd give you a call and give you the heads up. It's obviously been a pretty crazy year. A few jobs have fallen through for me. So, I thought a side hustle was in order. And it's an online retailer, like mainly selling books, actually, which I'm very, very excited about. So I just thought I'd give you a call and let you know. And also, while I've got you, actually, just see if you could sign 10,000 copies of your book and send them to me ASAP. That'd be bloody helpful. As a little bit of a favour for your old mate Chelsea. Thanks, mate. Yeah, sorry for the call out of the blue, but excited for the episode. But just the new business has sort of taken up a bit of my time. But yeah, if you get those books, sign them, obviously, and get them to me ASAP. That'd be great. Thanks, mate. It's Ryan Shelton from the podcast. I should have said that at the top.
To call back, press 2. To replay message, press 1 to reply.
We're all imperfect. And on this podcast, I'll be chatting with a variety of interesting people who are willing to make themselves vulnerable by sharing their own struggles and imperfections.
Then we'll discuss the invaluable takeaways we can all apply to our own imperfect lives.
I'm Hugh Van Cuylenberg from the Resilience Project.
And I'm Ryan Shelton from my mum. And this is The Imperfects. This episode is a really interesting one, and it's a different type of interview that we would normally have on the podcast. Whereas normally we have people who come on who seem to be doing really great or are doing really great in their own career or in their life, but then they're struggling with something that most people don't know about, and they come on and they share that. But in this case, Hugh, this Sam Willoughby, this is a struggle which was very public, and obvious, I think, is probably the word. As in, if anyone was to go through what Sam went through, I think you'd be expecting to go through a bit of a struggle. But the reason I was so keen on getting Sam on the podcast was I was asked to speak at a conference online, obviously, to join a panel with Sam Willoughby. Sam, for those of you who don't know Sam, he won a silver medal in the Olympics in 2012 as a BMX. In the interview, I paused. I didn't know what to say, a BMX and Josh was looking at me and Josh said, bandit. I think it's a bandit. I don't think the technical term for BMX riders are bandits. and one of the most well-known BMX bandits of all time, Nicole Kidman. Never won a medal, but she is very well known in the BMX bandit community.
Well, Sam Willoughby may have had a poster of her on his wall as a kid, I don't know, but he grew up in South Australia. Incredible BMX racer, as he corrected me. But we got invited to speak together for Medibank, a big conference I had. Sam's story, and he tells the story in a stunning way, and we'll let him do that later on, obviously. But he has a horrific accident soon after the Olympics, a couple of weeks after the Olympics, and becomes paralysed. And when I heard him talk about his struggles, I just felt like it's a story that we had to share. I mean, a lot of you may have heard this before, but I felt like it touched on a topic that I think is really, really powerful for all of us, regardless of how small or how big our struggles are. I'm so excited about this one. I had the most awkward. I still feel awful about this. I did the stupidest thing when we were setting up to have the chat. He's obviously, with his being paralysed, he's in a wheelchair. And we're both setting up on Zoom, and the producers of this Q&A session for Medibank were making sure our sound was right, making sure the microphone's in the right place, and checking that the sound, everything was good to go. And they were with Sam. They were saying, Sam, could you try this? And Hugh, try this. And then there was we had 10 minutes to go before the chat actually started, and we were just sitting there. And so I said to Sam, so mate, tell me a bit about your story. And he told me the story of his accident and how he's dealt with being paralysed and how hard it can be and how he's struggling for independence. And then the lady, I don't know what I was thinking. Well, I wasn't thinking, but she threw over to me and she said, now, Hugh, are you comfortable there? And I went on for about 10 minutes going, I've got this thing called proximal hamstring tendinopathy, and I am sitting down hurts. Like, I actually have to, I've got this. And I said, look at this, guys. And I held up, you look so disappointed in me.
Oh, no. I can just see where it's going, and I feel for you.
And I held up this, I've got this my physio got me to order an ergonomic stool, and people might go, where do I know ergonomic stool from? You probably know it from the castle when the Kerrigans get an ergonomic stool.
Oh, yeah.
And
My
Mrs.
grandfather
Kerrigan
had one.
Yeah, well, there you go. And Mrs. Kerrigan paints them all when Dale gets it off the trading post. That I've got one of those. So I'm holding up that. I'm going, it's so annoying. I've got to sit on one of these, and it still hurts my hamstring. It's just so annoying. It's been like 6 months, and I've got this pain in the top of my hamstring. And then I just stopped.
Did Sam have on hand the world's smallest violin to play, or he wouldn't have had one near, I guess?
Oh, and it was about 3 minutes before he went on. And then I was like, that's weird. No one sang it. No one said, oh, you poor thing. No one said, oh, that must be awful. That must be so hard. It's just nothing, absolute silence for 3 minutes. And I was sitting there going, well, people aren't really empathetic in this call. Anyway, and then the guy goes, and we're on in 30
seconds. Throw a little empathy my way, please. Oh, a little bit of sympathy at least would do. God,
Sam, anything?
My legs hurt. Give me a break.
Well, it's pretty much what it would have sounded like. And then the guy goes, and we're on in 30 seconds. And then it just hit me what I'd done. And I was so mortified. And he said, and we're on in 10, and we're on in 5. And I said, Sam, I am so unbelievably sorry. I am an idiot. And the guy goes, and we're live. And I went to go straight into this interview. And I spent the whole thing just like, I was just so ashamed of myself. And then whenever they asked me a question, I just kept saying, oh, look, you can ask me, but ask Sam. Like, he's the most resilient person. Don't ask me. I know nothing about this. Sam, go for it. I just kept throwing it over to Sam the whole time.
Oh, it's the worst feeling.
And I felt and he had this smile on his face the whole way through. He's such a good person, and people will hear it. He's one of the most beautiful people you'll ever meet. And at the end, I messaged him straight away afterwards, and I said, Sam, there is no word to describe how sorry I am. And he said, it's totally fine. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. And I think he actually meant that, which is very nice of him.
Well, it's so good. Actually, just one little, I don't know if this is going to throw people off, but I found while listening to Sam talk, I'd never heard Sam talk before, and he sounded a lot like our very own Josh Van Cuylenberg.
Really?
Josh, yeah. I thought
that's odd,
his voice.
Listening to him the whole time, I was thinking, who does this guy remind me of? He's got voice.
No way!
I was,
really?
and I still couldn't it can't be me. That'd be weird.
You were listening to yourself. I mean, it's not exactly the same as people will hear, but there's a cadence. There's like a similar cadence or tone in. So if you talk for a bit now, and then people can hear your voice, and then,
you've done this before, and I just feel so much pressure to say something good.
Okay, that's enough. Okay,
yeah.
Maybe just give a quick explanation of, I don't know, just say something like your greatest fear.
Definitely being thrown under the bus.
Just to get a sound of your voice.
This is right up there. Yep. No, that is funny. I'm honoured if you think that, because I thought he was a beautiful storyteller. Maybe you're not talking about the way he tells a story, just the tone of his voice. But
to be fair, I was just talking about the tone, but not to say you're not a great storyteller. You are a fantastic storyteller.
Thanks, Ryan.
But that wasn't the thing. It's more just the sound. So yeah, just something to keep in mind, and please don't let it distract you, because it is an amazing, inspirational story.
Well, just to jump in on that, when we did the interview with Sam, because it was done over Zoom, I had both of Josh and Sam in front of me in the squares, and while they were talking, I was looking at them going, those two men both have the most beautiful hair I have ever seen. Like, I think about Josh all the time, but they have the same hair as well, exactly the same hair.
I mean, at what point do we start doing some DNA tests? Because you two obviously don't look the same. Let's just agree that you two aren't actually brothers, and let's just assume from now on that Josh and Sam are separated at birth brothers. But no, this should all take a backseat to Sam's story, because it is brilliant, and listening to it, I found it quite heavy at times. But God, like you said, Hugh, talk about resilience. You just cannot, unless you've gone through something like that yourself, you just cannot imagine. And what I found really, really kind of unbelievable to listen to is the fact that he remembers every single moment. I didn't know. I assumed that when you have an accident like that, I would assume that you kind of you black out or you forget. But the way that he can vividly explain every single moment is quite amazing. So anyway, I really hope people enjoy this interview and get something out of it, because it is pretty astonishing.
Yeah, I remember being at a conference. I think it was over in Los Angeles in 2014, and it was a lot of psychologists speaking. And I remember one psych got up and talked about research that she'd just done or she'd just read. I can't remember which one it was, but it fascinated me and blew me away. And I was thinking of it when I was chatting to Sam. The research very simply was they got a whole lot of people who'd won Tats Lotto and a group of people who'd just become paralysed around the same time. And what they did was they measured their levels of happiness. And as you can imagine, and if you can sort of imagine a graph here, but the people who won Tats Lotto, their happiness and well-being went through the roof, went up really high. The people who just become paralysed, it just dropped, as you can imagine, dramatically. And they followed these people for the next couple of years, or I think it was the next 5 years. And what happened was,
I'm glad they did a follow-up, because I don't know if they needed to do any research to to come to that conclusion. It's like, you're not going to believe this, guys. You will not believe what we found. The people who won millions of dollars were happy, and the people who were in a serious accident were not. Anyway, I'll just leave that with you, because, I mean, thank God for science, huh?
Oh dear. And then what they did was they then followed, I think everyone knows this is heading, but over the course of 5 years, what happened, the people who won Tats Lotto, their happiness started to drop off again and go down again and go down back to where it was, when before they'd won Tats Lotto. And at the same time, the people who'd become paralysed, their well-being went up and up and up and up. And there's a point where they actually cross over, and the people who won Tats Lotto, their well-being started to go down below where it was before they won Tats Lotto. And the people who'd been paralysed, their well-being continued to go up beyond the point they were before the accident, which is incredible research. And I think it really, when you listen to Sam talk, you kind of get a sense of how that can actually happen.
So Sam Willoughby, BMX racer, what an absolute... I mean, I didn't know of him before this, and now he just has to be one of our greatest athletes, an incredible human being.
It's a beautiful story of hope and resilience, told in the most authentic... I mean, we couldn't have asked for a more authentic interview from Sam. He was just wonderful. So...
we could have asked, but we wouldn't have got it.
Yeah, we could have asked. It wouldn't have happened because he really was just terrific.
It'd be a weird way to end the interview if, he told the story and then you said, "Hey, Sam, can we get a more authentic version of that?" I mean, the most insensitive question. I mean, we couldn't. I know. Part of me thinks we couldn't ask for a more authentic interview than that. But God, Sam, I got to ask, can you do that more authentically? Because if you can, that would be great for us. But we couldn't. We couldn't ask. Dear. We couldn't ask, and we couldn't get. We
hope you enjoy this, everyone. Sam Willoughby. So, Sam, thank you so much for joining us. And I think a really big thank you, because I know how late it is over where you are right now. So thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
And what time is it?
It is 10:37 at night.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very, very generous of you. So thank you so much.
All good.
Mate, I had the great privilege of sharing, I was going to say share the stage. It's not totally true. It was a virtual event we did for Medibank together. But we had an hour together, and there was a moderator asking us questions. And the whole time I wanted to hear more of your story, because I'm just so fascinated. So I'm so happy I've got the chance to chat to you in this format. Your story is extraordinary, and I know you've shared it a few times. I'm fascinated about your experience at the Olympics. I want to hear about your silver medal at the Olympics, but which was in 2012, is that right?
12, yeah.
Yeah. So before we get to that, though, just your childhood. I'm picturing you as a kid just on your BMX bike, obviously what you won your silver medal for. I'm picturing you, just living on your BMX bike. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's about right. My brother and I were just on the bikes all the time, riding around the neighborhood, and that was kind of our form of transportation right up until, mid-teens, when you could start driving, and then it just meant that we could go to places further away to ride, really, because we could drive there.
So,
So yeah, it was just about the bikes and footy, to be honest. A lot of Aussie rules footy as well.
I know in our backyard, Josh and I would set up, like we'd get these logs, sort of our BMX bikes. Obviously, not to the same level. You would get logs and just get a ramp and we'd ride over the top of those. And that was just like, for me in my childhood, that's a very happy memery.
Yep.
Is that the kind of thing you were doing, setting up like tricks for yourself and stunts to do?
Yep. I remember we had this piece of, I don't even know what about the size of an esky lid piece of wood. And we'd just put 2 bricks under it. Then it turned to 3 bricks under it to make it steeper and steeper to the point where we'd ride into it and it would just collapse because it was too much. There was too many bricks and this piece of wood was too steep. And it was just, yeah, but I mean, that just built an unbelievable foundation that we didn't even realize we were building as far as when it comes to creativity and even like obviously specifically in my sport of BMX racing. We dug up mum and dad's backyard and had a BMX track back there that we changed every day. And I mean, it wasn't a full-size track. It was just a few jumps, but to us it was, everything. And we're out there with the hose and just, the only rule was we weren't allowed to hit a pipe. And so we got down to a couple of pipes and then mum and dad were like, all right, that's deep enough. So yeah, it was a very good childhood and lots of fun memories.
Did you know from a young age you wanted to do something as an adult, like as a BMX bike rider? Did you know that was a career that you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, it was. I vividly remember around when I was about 7 years old, we were at a BMX race in Cross Keys in Paraka in South Australia. And it was a Wednesday night in the school holidays and I was flicking, Mum had bought this magazine for us on the way out. She'd get the BMX Press magazine every month for us. And there was a section in it that was about 3 pages long every month about American racing. And I was just fascinated by it. Just looked looked bigger and brighter and all the colors and the sponsors. And I remember saying to her that night, and she still tells everyone to this day that I said to her that night, I'm not getting a job. I'm going to America to race BMX. And that was, it was a dream right from the get-go. Yeah.
So fast forward a few years and it's become your full-time thing. You're training for the Olympics. How's that? I mean, how exciting is that, preparing for the Olympics and knowing you'll be representing your country?
Yeah, it was, the Olympic part of it, it really wasn't a goal of mine early on. It was just to get to America and race professional because the Olympics, BMX wasn't in the Olympics until 2008. So for me, when the first one came around in 2008, I was too young. I was 17. And then when I got the opportunity, I knew that 2012 was going to be on the horizon, and I was sort of on the rise at that point. And it was, I would say, it was kind of it was a goal that got put in front of me, but it wasn't, for me, my dream as a kid was the USA BMX pro title and to be world champion. And so I won the world title in elite in 2012, right before the London Olympics. And I really didn't know what to expect with the Olympics. It was always, when I thought of the Olympics, I thought of Ian Thorpe, I thought of Kathy Freeman, and so it was a very exciting opportunity, and I put everything into it. And as soon as it got announced, it was like, okay, well, that's a new goal. Then I want to be a gold medalist in BMX, and naturally just chased it like I did every other goal, really. And I think when I got there, though, then you're like, okay, this is big, this is this is sport on, in the pinnacle. And it was something I'll cherish forever, both the Olympics I went to.
Well, let's park the Olympics for a second. Winning the world championship, like if that was your goal, how incredible is that to do that? But was that an incredible feeling?
It was that one was amazing. Like, just, it was in Birmingham, England, and my mum and dad were there, and I was 20 years old at the time, so I was pretty young. It was my second year in the elite category, and that was just it's one of those ones where I remember everything leading up to the race, like throughout the day, but the actual race and even like the initial celebration right away, like I watched the video, but I don't really, like, it was all just in the moment. And it was just a a pretty special moment. And I think just the fact that my parents were there and they had been so supportive throughout my whole career, it just made it that bit specialer. And then being able to, jump on the phone right away and talk to my brother. And that was the thing we dreamed about as kids. I remember putting an ice cream lid on my handlebars in the backyard, making a number plate and sticky taping W1 on it. And that was, so that's a pretty special memory for sure.
So were you happy with the silver medal at the Olympics? Was that, you were happy with that?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, initially I always say when I come across the finish line, it was I got second because I went into that race as the world champion. So the goal was to win the race. And, but pretty quickly then you realize that this is the Olympic Games and, this is not, second here is not like second at the Louisville National, this is second, silver medal, and I'm going to go up and put the Australian tracksuit on and stand on the podium and, wave to my country. And this is bigger than me and bigger than my sport. And you realize the magnitude of it. So I'm glad I was in that headspace in the race though, because I think that's important to you don't want to be going up to the start line feeling probably all of that weight on your shoulders, and you want to focus on the job. But definitely the goal was to win. And when I came across the finish line initially, it was a little bit of disappointment, but it didn't take long to switch gears and realize how special it is. And I think as the years and time goes on from that event, even now, it's it's something that I cherish.
Your wife is also an amazing BMX bike rider. Did I say that right? BMX bike rider? Is that how you describe it? I don't know if I got that right.
BMX racer. Yep.
BMX racer. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was going to say bandit. I don't know. BMX racer. So just I'm really keen to hear how your career progressed from there. But had you met your wife at this point?
Yeah. So Lisa and I met in 2008. So I had moved over to the US when I was 17. And we were kind of traveling around and we were basically living together by the time the London Olympics rolled around.
So you met at 17?
Yeah, so it was...
wow.
So I guess, she'll kill me if I don't tell the story, but I was a bit of a fanboy of Elise growing up. She was kind of like the superstar little American grommet, and I'd seen on all the DVDs and was like MySpace messaging her and had a crush on Elise, and eventually pulled it off. So that's a message for all. So,
what does her first date look like? Are you both wheeling around on your BMX around town? Or?
No. So we actually met in China in 2008. The World Championships were in China, and I won the Junior World Championships in China, and she was there as well. And we'd both been selected. Obviously, she was for the US and I was for Australia. And the teams were at the same hotel and whatever else. And that was kind of where we met and spoke for the first time. And then later that year, that was sort of my goal after winning that race. The junior world title was to move to America, and Mum and Dad sort of said, if you save up enough money, you can go. So I saved up enough money for a plane ticket and made my way over there. And I think they thought I was coming home a couple of months later, but ended up winning a race and got a sponsor. And here we are 12 years later.
Yeah. Were you nervous when you first approached her?
Yeah, I was pretty nervous. Yeah, I maybe had a little bit of liquid courage, but
I only ask about your wife now because I know she's such an important part of your story. So,
yeah.
So we fast forward a few years. I don't want to skip over anything important that happened in between the games, 2012, 2016. So let me know if I'm missing anything here. Is there anything
just
significant from
more racing, really?
More racing and
lots
more
of
winning,
racing.
it sounds like.
I had a really successful stretch from 2012 through to 16. I won another world title and a couple of USA BMX titles, and that was probably the most successful period of my career over here. But and then obviously Elise and I that was sort of where we started, bought a house and we're living together and got a dog and, normal stuff as the relationship progresses. And as we both, we just kind of continued to grow up together, I guess.
How did you go in the 2016 Olympics?
Yeah, so 2016, I was, like I said, that period from 12 to 16 was probably my most successful period. And it was, for me, it was all about going into Rio and trying to win. And I went in there in probably the best physical, mental shape of my life, and won every lap up to the final, was top qualifier for the final, started in lane 1 and got a great start, was leading the race at the first jump and made a small mistake on the first jump and just basically, in BMX terms, cased the jump, left my back wheel down a little bit too long and kind of lost all my speed. And long story short, came across the finish line in 5th, 6th. So that was the end of that campaign, really. But as far as how it went in the lead up was, really good, and had a successful day until the last hurdle, so to speak.
And not long after that, your life would take a pretty sharp change in direction, I guess. Yeah.
So I think looking back at it now, that it is probably somewhat led to my accident in a way, just that I was, after Rio, was very like bury my head in the sand, like just keep digging, try to win the next race. And it was literally 4 weeks after the final in Rio that I had a training accident at my local track here in Chula Vista, just in a routine warm-up, and was probably a bit fatigued, was by myself, and just probably a little bit, I'd say mentally and physically just tired. And I was just doing a low-intensity routine warm-up and flipped off the back of my bike going up the lip of a jump and came down and landed on top of my head and broke my neck at C5, 6, and 7, and was basically instantly paralyzed from the neck down.
When you say you were by yourself, so there was no one there, you were sort of left by yourself after the incident? Or what?
Well, when I say I'm by myself, as in at that point, Elise was in Minnesota I was by myself in the respect that there were people at the track, gotcha. Thankfully. But I was at home by myself. As at that point, Elise was in Minnesota doing a charity event after her success in Rio, which I was actually supposed to be at. And with the mind state I was in, I changed my ticket, went home, and was like basically, on the grind to try to get back to winning, quote unquote.
Do you have strong memories of that day? Do you remember the incident well?
Yeah, I remember it very well. Good, I'm very fortunate that I didn't get a head injury from my crash, but at the same time, very vivid. Never lost consciousness. Never had any form of a concussion, and so I have full memory of the whole day. And funnily enough, right before I went to the track that day, I was exchanging text messages with another Australian BMXer, Kalen Young, who I went to the London Olympics with, and he was kind of just checking in on me that day, actually, just out of the blue, and he knew about my knee, and he was like, "Oh, come on," he used to call me Samaby, and he's like, "Samaby, you've been at it for 10 years now, like professionally, and I think you should just take a break and like get your knee fixed and just take a step back, like you got nothing to prove, and like you just need to take a breath and reset." And so we were, going back and forward a little bit with texting, and I just remember like having those text exchange and then thinking, he's probably right. And regardless, sort of went to the track that day just to have a ride. And it really wasn't a training session. It was more or less just a Saturday. It was local practice at the track. And I was like, I'm just going to go out and turn my legs over, a bit of active recovery, so to speak. And that was when the accident happened. And I remember coming around the corner in my warm-up and coming into what we call a rhythm section, where there's just a bunch of little jumps all in a row. And I'd always go through the whole section on my back wheel, and that was kind of like signified to me like I was balanced and warmed up. And this particular time I just overcorrected, and I remember to the point of being upside down in the air and thinking like I'd been in that position 100 times in my life. Like it's not the first time I flipped off the back of my bike. And I remember being there and thinking like, oh, I'm looping out, like I'm going to land on my back. It's, you know, like when you go up to take a mark in footy and come down on your back, I was like, I'm going to be winded. And it all happens quick, but you have these thoughts in that small window of time. And when I had hit the ground and I somewhat came to, I realized that I wasn't winded. And that was sort of when you naturally do the whole body scan and realized I couldn't feel my legs at that point. And it just felt like my legs were like way off in the distance. And that was when, I started to obviously panic a bit.
Are you in pain at this point?
No, I never laying there. I never had any pain the whole time. I was just felt like the best way I can describe it is it felt like I was wearing a wetsuit that was just full of water, and because it just felt like my chest was like way off in the distance. And by the time people there was a few parents that were at the track because it was a local practice day, came down and they were trying to, keep me still and, telling me all the things as you do, relax and breathe. And luckily one of these dads was actually an EMT, and he ran through basically a check of my whole body and started at my feet and it's like squeezing my feet. Can you feel that? No. Can you move this? No. And he sort of worked his whole way up my body. And I remember he got his hand to my chest, and he had his hand on my chest, and I could see his hand like right there. And, but it just looked, I could see his hand was right there, but it felt like it was just probably a couple of feet above my chest, because it just felt like my whole body was like a wetsuit full of water at that point. And he ran through that check once, and then he went down my arms and he got to my hand and he said, can you squeeze my hand? And I remember the first time he did the check, I really gingerly squeezed his hand. And then he just kept doing these checks while we waited for the ambulance to arrive. And the second time he went through it, he went down to my hands. And the second time he did it, I couldn't squeeze his hand. Like my hands had gone at that point. And I was essentially motionless from the neck down.
How are you mentally at this point? Like, has it registered to you? Are you thinking this is bad, or are you thinking I should, this is just momentary? Or
no, at that point, I didn't know anything about spinal cord injury at that point, so I didn't think like, oh, I've broken my neck or my back, but I just knew I was paralyzed, and I didn't know why. I didn't have pain. My neck didn't hurt. My back didn't hurt. But I knew at that point it was bad, and pretty much right away, there was another rider there that actually said to me that, you're going to be all right, and we're going to get you back up. And I actually said to him right away that, no, this is not good. And, I just had at that point, it was pretty much right away that BMX just went out of my mind right away. That was like from the get-go, it was never, I hope I can ride a BMX bike again. I hope it was just about, my mind just instantly went to Elise. My mind instantly went to my parents, my brother, and like them, they're going to get this phone call and just the basics. I just started thinking about the basics. Like, I thought about a wheelchair. I thought about, am I going to be able to stand up again? Those were the initial thoughts.
How much did you miss your Elise and your mum and dad in that moment?
Yeah, a lot. It was a pretty daunting moment. They eventually got me into the ambulance, and I was just sitting there waiting, or laying on the backboard waiting, and they basically said, we can't drive out of here because it's the injury's too fragile and it's too rough trying to drive out of here. So we've called for a life flight. And at that point, I was pretty strapped tight to a backboard. Like even if I wanted to try to move anything, there was no chance of that. And at that point, they held a phone to my ear, and it was Elise. And she said she was on her way, and I could kind of hear the she was, she was upset, and I could obviously hear the stress in her voice. And she just sort of said that she loved me and it was going to be okay, and that she would see me at the hospital. She was going to get there as quick as she could, and she was on the next flight. She could only get to Los Angeles, and then someone drove up and brought her down. But yeah, my mind, I was just the thought of, my mom getting that phone call back in Adelaide, and knowing just, I have a very caring family, and I knew that they were going to just go into panic mode and do everything they could, which they did, and they were on the next flight. And I think I just felt a bit of a sense of guilt in many ways of just them knowing that they're going to sit on a plane for 30 hours and all they've been told is Sam's paralyzed, and you need to get over here. And I think I just felt a bit of guilt from some respects, in that I felt that I just felt I'd overdone it, and that's what led to that accident in that moment.
So you obviously you airlifted to hospital. You spend a bit of time in hospital. Your family get over there. What was it like the first time you saw your parents or your family?
Yeah, so when I I was life flighted to hospital, which was like a 5-minute helicopter ride. And then when I got there, I was basically rushed into an MRI machine and then ripped out of there and then put behind a curtain in emergency, and still just by myself. And eventually a doctor came around, and he said, close your eyes. And then he said, what am I doing? And I said, you're squeezing my right big toe. And he said, okay, well, we need to go now. We need to go to surgery now. And at that point, I still didn't know what my injury was. No one had told me. It was just kind of this frantic rush around the hospital. And he said I'd broken my C5, 6, 7, and C6 was a burst fracture, and it was crushing my spinal cord. And if they didn't relieve that pressure now, then my chances of recovery were 0. And at that point, I'd never even been under the knife. And I remember in that point feeling pretty alone, just because there was no one to turn to. And, Elise wasn't there yet. Mum and Dad obviously weren't there. Matt wasn't there. And I looked at the doctor and I said, what are the risks? And he said, well, if we've got to go in there, we're going to have to pull a bunch of bone fragments out of your spinal cord. And when we're trying to relieve that pressure, if we hit any higher, we could, you could do permanent damage, and your condition would be permanent. And then I basically said, do you know what you're doing? And he said, yeah. And that was that. And we went to surgery. And my next memory is waking up from surgery, and they fused my neck, and woke up from surgery, and I was still the same. I mean, I was still laying on a stretcher, paralyzed, but the surgery went good. And then it was about an hour later, after I'd woken up, that Elise arrived, and she was there and put her hand on mine. And I remember I said to her in that moment, you're not marrying me, you're not marrying a vegetable. And I regret saying that now, but at the time that was just how I felt. I didn't know what to expect for the rest of my life, and it just all seemed doom and gloom at that point. And
so you're engaged at that point, is that right?
We were engaged, yeah. And
okay. And how far off to your wedding?
So we were scheduled to get married the following April, and this was in September.
Okay. Sorry, can I go back to that? Like, what were you feeling yourself that made you say that to her?
I think just a lot of the guilt, like I'd said before, in that, and just scared. I was just scared, and scared for her. I mean, we were 25 and 26, 25 at that point, and just I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I was laying on a bed, completely paralyzed, and with no real hope from any doctor at that point of recovery from back to normal, I guess, is all I could think about at that point was normal. Like, normal was athletic, running around, jumping around, racing BMX and, doing whatever I wanted. And there was no sign of going back to that. And I didn't know how I was going to deal with that, let alone drag someone else along with it. And I didn't really know what else to say at that point. And I knew the caring, loving person that she wasn't the kind of person that was just going to run away. And
what did she say when you said that?
She said, "Don't say that. I'm not going anywhere, and we're going to get through this."
So how long does it take to get out of hospital, first of all? Were you in hospital for quite some time?
Yeah, so I was in emergency for a little over 2 weeks, and then I was flown to Craig Hospital, which was like a spinal cord and brain injury specialty rehab kind of hospital in Colorado. So we'd I guess the research and stuff my parents had done at that point, and we'd requested, that place was pretty well renowned, and so we'd requested to go there. So then I had to be medical flight to that point back over to Colorado, and then I was there for 4 months. And
as well as you, I suppose, physically recovering as far as being able to move out of the rehab facility, what I'm interested in your mental state. Was that to go from a point straight after the surgery to be saying, "You're not going to marry me"? I mean, you're obviously married now, so things started to shift for you slowly. Is that right?
Yeah, it was pretty slow. The whole time I was in the rehab hospital, Elise was just by my side the whole time. I mean, her and my mom moved to Colorado basically, and were living out of hotels and in and out of the hospital every day, visiting me and helping me with rehab. And she was on the phone back here, like renovating our house and getting everything ready so that when it was time to come home, it was somewhat accessible. And she just picked up and went with it. And it took me a long time, and I found it really hard because I wasn't in any way proud of the person I looked at in the mirror, and I was insecure. I was scared. And I think I struggled to understand, like, I don't know if understand's the right word, but I was just like, I think because I was so disappointed and not satisfied with myself at that point, and so scared of what the future held, that I was like, how can she be this good and this supportive of it? And I mean, I tried to push her away at times, just because I didn't know not because I didn't want her to be there. I wanted her to be there more than anything, but I didn't know what the future held. I didn't, at that point I couldn't take a shower by myself. I couldn't dress myself. I couldn't brush my own teeth, like hold the toothbrush properly. Go to the toilet by myself. I couldn't, and just all I could think of is like, this, you don't want this life. Like, I don't want this life. You shouldn't want this life. And it was just scary.
Yeah. So because you're married now, was there a point where you thought do you remember the point where you said to yourself, no, I do want to pursue this life together. I do want to start to get things back on track, or was it a long time, or do you still struggle with that feeling of not being happy with yourself?
No, I don't struggle with it now, and I definitely remember the point. It was so we got home New Year's Eve of 2016 going into 17, and it was around April. My brother had moved over to live with us with his wife and little one, to help sort of share the load with all my therapies and that kind of thing, and help us transition back to life at home. And at that point, I needed sort of help with everything. And it was when I came home, for me, I had to walk. Like, that was the definition of recovery for me. And if I didn't walk, then I was useless. I didn't understand what there was for me to do in life. It was just, it was all about, that was my way that I felt to get independence. And if I couldn't get to that point, then I didn't, it terrified me to even think of what life would be like. And it was about 4 months into being home. It was in April, and I hadn't really left the house at that point, other than a doctor's appointment here and there. It was just all about therapy, rehab, 3 times a day. When I wasn't doing rehab, it was like trying every, form of Eastern medicine or visualization or anything. Wanted to try everything to recover, and which was, move my legs and walk again. And it got to April, and my brother was here helping us, and I hadn't really left the house. I was pretty skinny, didn't really go outside much, and I'd say I was pretty depressed at that point, and just burying my head in the sand mentality. And my brother knew I was a fan of NASCAR, and there was a NASCAR race in California. It was about 2 hours away. And so he organized some tickets through a friend of mine that worked in the industry. And he said, I got these tickets, like, we're going to the race in Fontana this weekend. And I was like, I'm not going there. Like, no way. I don't want to be seen in crowds. I don't want to do it. And he just sort of put his foot down, like, we're going. And basically at that point literally threw me in the car because I couldn't get in the car. And took me to the race, and we got to the race, and the guy who'd organized the tickets, who was like a family friend of ours and works in the industry, he said, I've arranged all this stuff, meet and greets, and with, Jimmy Johnson and Casey Kane and Richard Petty, all these big names of NASCAR, which I was pretty scared to go and do, because I didn't, you just feel the energy off of people, like, because I got introduced as, this is Sam. He went to the Olympics for BMX, and here I am sitting in a wheelchair, and you could tell they're kind of like, well, what happened between then and now? And you clearly don't ride BMX still. And I just didn't know how to interact. I hadn't interacted at that point really in a wheelchair outside of the hospital. Anyway, so we did all this, meet and greet all the superstars. But the guy that organized the tickets, he said, at 10 o'clock, I need you to go to the number 13 truck and meet someone. He said his name's Booty Barker, and he's in a wheelchair. And he said, I've known Booty for 30 years, and he's a great guy, and you need to meet this guy. And when Matt told me this, I was like, like, as shallow as it sounds now, I didn't want to meet anyone in a wheelchair, because I was like, that's not what I want to be. And that, what are they going to have to tell me? And I hate to think that I thought like that, but that's how I thought at the time. And so anyway, we went to do the right thing. I went over to the number 13 truck, and Matt pushed me over there, and there's Booty. This guy comes rolling out, and he's just this bubbly, outgoing guy. And here he is, he's in a wheelchair. He had the same injury as me 30 years ago. And he's an engineer and he's running this multi-million-dollar race team. And he comes out the trailer in his wheelchair and he's wheelies down the back of it. And he's, "Hey, Sam, how you going, man?" And, Southern accent, and I won't do it any justice, but so he's like,
That was pretty good. I didn't mind that.
He's like, "Come on up here," and takes us up into the trailer. And there he is in the back of this semi-trailer. And he's climbing up the walls and pulling all these exhausts out and pulling up his laptop, showing us all his engine data. And he looks at me and he's just full of beans, happiest guy you've ever met. And he's like, "When'd you get hurt?" And I was like, 8 months ago. And he's like, "You look great. What are you going to do now?" And I was pretty taken back. I was like, because I didn't know what I was going to do now. And Matt kind of, there was an awkward silence, and my brother jumped in and he's like, "Oh, Sam, he's rescheduled his wedding, and he really wants to walk at his wedding, so he's like working really hard to try to get back on his feet and doing a lot of rehab." And Booty's like, "That's great, brother. Then what?" And I didn't know how to answer that either. And I was like, and my brother kind of looked at Booty and he said, "Well, like, when did you stop rehab and kind of just, get on with it?" And like Matt was a bit scared to ask the question. I think he was kind of tentative, obviously. And Booty looked at him and Booty's like, "Rehab? I didn't do no rehab. They said that if I can dress myself, I can leave the hospital. I did that in a month, got the hell out of there, went to university, got my engineering degree, and here I am." He's like, "You got to get on with it, brother." And I was just I just couldn't believe it. And just because I think at that point I just put so many limits on myself, and all the advice I'd been given at that point was medical advice, and it was very like, you're going to need help with this, you're going to need to do this, you're going to need to do it this way, and someone's basically you're going to roll into a minivan for the rest of your life, and someone's going to pull you out of that minivan and help you get into bed and help you take a shower, and that's your life. And I felt like I'd become this object, and it was everyone's job to kind of keep me moving. And I hated that. And, I've always been a very independent person. And then I met Booty, and all of a sudden it just opened my eyes to like, here he was, on this traveling circus, traveling around the country, 36 weekends a year, doing it himself, no helpers, driving a big F-150 truck, and he's strong as hell, and he's married, lives independently, and he looked at me and he said, "You go to the gym?" And I was like, "Oh, I used to love the gym, like for racing and stuff." He's like, "You're gonna have to go to the gym, brother. You're gonna have to get strong. You're looking a little weak." And then he starts telling me about his stuff, and he's like, "Me, bench press 140 kilo, do pull-ups. You need to do a lot of pull-ups. You're gonna have to pull yourself in the car. You're gonna have to do all this stuff." And he just went on and told us the way he lived his life, and it was just like, I was just mind blown, because I'd just been in this institution, kind of hospital, I guess, institutionalized in a way, in that, I'd been given all these modalities and ways that I was going to have to live my life. Traveling was going to be a nightmare. Everything was too hard, and, I need all these things to help me do stuff. And then Booty was just like, "Nah, you figure it out." And he looked at my brother and he said, "Here's the deal. Him and I, we're the same as you. We're just going to have to drag ourselves around a little more." And since that day, I think I've lived by that expression of just, you find a way, you drag yourself around, and you learn to enjoy and embrace the struggle, because believe it or not, there were the struggles before this as well. And I think after that day, it was like, all right, we went home, and I remember that night, my brother and I, we got back to the hotel, and because we stayed up that way that night, and Booty had told us, that he just stayed in normal hotel rooms, and he just gets himself in the bathtub. So there were me and Matt, we're like, "Let's try to get you in the bathtub." And it was like this new excitement of like, I'm going to learn to be independent. I'm going to learn to live my own life again. And I mean, I had to start small. I had to start with getting in the bathtub, learning to, brush my teeth, put my own shoes on. I mean, I always tell the story. The first time I dressed myself, it took me 35 minutes. And by the time I was done, I was in the bed and I went back to sleep because I was exhausted. But it got better and better and better. And eventually was able to get myself to a point of where I'm at now. And I live a fully independent life, and look at myself in the mirror and I'm proud and I'm happy and love what I do. But yeah, back to the original question, it was kind of a long-winded answer, but that was the turning point for me, that the day I met Booty Barker.
That's an incredible story.
Yeah.
What an amazing man.
Yeah, he's a pretty amazing man, and we still keep in touch quite a bit, and yeah, it's good.
But still, I mean, it still takes a bit to be. You're obviously ready to hear that message from him. He sounds like a very infectious character, but you're obviously ready to hear that message. And just people who are listening to this won't be able to, because we're doing this over Zoom. Just seeing the way your face lit up when you were talking about your childhood and riding BMX, like your face went straight, just talking about Booty then, your face is exactly the same, just lit up again as well.
Yeah.
An incredible influence to have on your life, an amazing story.
Yeah, no, he's he's an incredible guy, and just incredible because it's what he I think what he does with no glitz and glamour around, he just gets on with it, and it's a tough thing to do, I think, for a lot of people, especially in this day and age, is just to do the simple things well, and when no one's watching and there's no real reward for it other than your own happiness, which is the biggest reward. But yeah, he's pretty amazing guy for sure. And I think,
did your brother know that you're going to be meeting Booty that day? Was that whole day orchestrated so you could meet Booty, or that was just a really nice?
Well, he knew that was part of it. The guy that got us the tickets, Mark, he wanted us to go meet Booty, but Matt had no idea who Booty was or like what it was about. And I think we both just thought it was like, meet someone else that's in a similar position and not really knowing what to expect out of it. And when I first seen Booty, I was like, there's no way he had the same injury as me. Like, because I mean, my injury's up pretty high. So obviously it affects your hands and your arms, and the spinal cord injuries are very different. Someone that might have a lower back injury is going to be able to do a lot of other, functional things a lot, I don't want to say easier, but that, their hands aren't affected and things like that. So it's a unique situation. And when he came out and he told me that, we right away, we'd asked him like, what was your injury? And he said, I broke it at the C6.
And so how long after that did you get married? Was that?
That was in April, and then we ended up getting married on New Year's Eve of that year, 2017.
And I sort of know the ending to this, as far as, because we did a Q&A session together, but you were able to walk down the aisle?
Yeah, so when I left that day after meeting Booty, it was obviously I still had that goal in mind of, that was a promise I made to Elise early on when we were in hospital. It was like, I want to stand and I want to walk down the aisle. And so when I left that day, I think what I'd learned was that it, just like that gold medal, is that it couldn't define me, but it was definitely something that I wanted to keep chasing, but there was more to it to me than walking, and I wasn't Sam, the guy that walks, that wasn't my introduction before, I was just Sam. And so it was about getting back to that. And that was the biggest thing out of meeting Booty, was learning to be independent again. And that became my main focus. And day to day, I would do my rehab and chip away at trying to get to that point to be able to stand at the wedding and ultimately walk down the aisle with Elise. But it wasn't going to define me at that point. It was just a promise that I really wanted to find a way to keep. And with the help of some braces that kind of locked my knees out, I was able to get strong enough that I could hold myself up and stand. And I was actually able to, with a little bit of, I think it's tone and spasm in my hip flexors, I was able to step down the aisle and walk Elise down the aisle.
And how was your wedding?
It was amazing. Yeah, best day of my life still to this day. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I think, just for us together at times, like when we did the dance together, and I was able to stand and hold Elise and to be in a room we had about 200 people there, and to be in a room with that many people, and it just felt like it was just the two of us. It was incredible. And I think just going through what we'd been through over the course of the sort of 16 months at that point, it just to be there and to be standing and to have all those people around, and even when the ceremony was over and took the braces off and was back in the wheelchair, and it didn't matter. It was just like so many people that meant so much to us and meant so much more now. I think you just learn to appreciate simple things after you lose what seemed like simple things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're an incredible story of hope and resilience. When we were being asked questions, I felt really embarrassed when the lady was asking me about resilience. So I was like, don't ask me. Like, you've got Sam here. Like, incredible. What do you? I mean, a lot of people around the world right now, and the timing of having you on this podcast, it wasn't deliberate, but I think it's a really good time. Any time would be a great time to have you on, particularly powerful at the moment. A lot of people are going through difficult times at the moment. What keeps you positive? What do you do that keeps you in a positive frame of mind?
I mean, I still have days where it's, I get frustrated. Obviously, it's, you can't reach something. Things take longer, and you still have days of frustration. But for me, the biggest thing has been learning to embrace my struggle, and I don't see it as a negative. I just see it as, I almost hold it more as a badge of honor that I get up and the enjoyment and the satisfaction I get out of getting up and getting on with my day every day, because it is a little bit harder now, but it means so much more every day. And I think living that life before and then now, sometimes I'll do the simplest things. And early on in my injury, I should say, I'd do the simplest things like tie my shoe for the first time, and you'd tell someone about it and they'd be like, oh, that's great. But I'd felt that, like, to the point where for 25 years doing my shoe was, you didn't even think about it. And then I lost that, and then I learned to do it again, and it was like, wow, like, that's incredible. Like, it was like I just won the world title again. But obviously you didn't get that same reaction from when you tell someone about it. So I think I just get satisfaction out of little wins every day. And you wake up and I'm just grateful to be able to come down and make a coffee and go outside and have my wife by my side and a little dog. And I'm just a lot more content than ever, to be honest, because it's horrible that I had to lose all of that maybe to realize that. But I think that we all have the ability to do it regardless, in that just to appreciate the simple things. And I think that's right now, of everything that's going on, our natural instinct when something bad happens is like, oh, I just want to go back to what normal was. And I think normal is just forever changing. Like, in our lives, normal will always be changing. But there's a few constants that we can always be appreciative of and can enjoy.
That's a beautiful message, especially at this time, mate. I absolutely love talking to you. What people won't be able to see is your smile. It's just one of the most infectious smiles I've ever seen. And it's to hear you talk about your struggles with a smile like that on your face. here in Melbourne, where we're recording this from, you don't see too many smiles at the moment. I think your journey puts things into perspective, especially at a time like this. So, I really appreciate you coming on here and staying up so late to do that for us.
No worries.
Is there anything else you wanted to sort of touch on before we let you go to bed?
No, I think that's been probably a big portion of my journey, and it's like everyone's, it's ongoing. So I'm sure I'll continue to tick along, and we'll have more challenges along the way. And but yeah, like I said, I think it's the biggest thing is just embracing them and finding things to be thankful for. I think a big one that stands out for me is like with the racing thing, and a question I get asked a lot is like, and especially even still today, like, oh, do you think you'll race again? And do you wish is it hard for you to sit here and watch racing? And, I go to the track that my accident happened at twice a week, and that jump is still the same, but I honestly don't really look at it or think about it. Because I think what we do and what we think, like I always thought, I love BMX racing, but the truth is I loved competition, and this injury has made me realize that the things that we do that we think we love, they're deeper than that. Like for me, like I always thought, I love BMX racing, but it was the competition of it. Like if I could wake up tomorrow and jump out of bed and run down the stairs, I wouldn't race again, because I feel like I filled that void, like I went through that, and I know now that I can challenge or stimulate what I got out of BMX in so many other ways. And that's exciting and new. And but I still love being and that's why I coach in BMX now, because it's the competition side of it. I love that challenge of, creating a routine, creating something that we don't know if it's going to work, but you're chasing something. And yeah.
And you coach Elise, is that right?
I coach Elise, yeah, my wife, yeah.
What a powerful team that is. I'd hate to mess with you guys. I don't think you'll find a stronger athlete-coach connection than you guys have got.
Yeah, she's a pretty strong person. I'm pretty lucky to it's very plug and play. She's very good.
Yeah. Well, she sounds like a wonderful person, and she certainly sounds like a big part of why you are in such a wonderful headspace at the moment as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky to have her, and she's my rock, and she's a very battle-tested person. That's what I tell her before she goes up to the start hill, that she's battle-tested.
Absolutely. As you know, Josh, our producer, is here. Josh, did you have any? I often I don't interview people for a living, so I often miss really obvious stuff that I should be talking about. Josh, is there anything I probably should have brought up there?
I've got nothing to add. I thought that was so moving. I was, blown away, nearly in tears at a few points in a good way, and just feeling very grateful for life, really. So thanks for having that effect. And thanks for sharing your story. It was beautiful and beautifully told, Sam. You're an amazing storyteller.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I think it's I agree with what Josh said there. I felt very emotional at a few points, and one of them was actually about just the relationship with your brother. Like Josh and I are extremely close.
Yep.
Yeah, family is so important. And I think some people right now around the world are going, I wish I'd get out of my house and get away from my family. Yeah. I think just listening to that, my gosh, I could just tell the relationship you and your brother have is very special.
Yeah, it really is. And they're the first ones that we can connect with. And I think anyone that you can go, I want to be away from, and then literally they leave for 2 minutes and you could easily pick back up and go on again. That's a special bond. So yeah, my brother was, my whole family, mum, dad, but my brother, I think we've always had just such a close bond, and he was really the one that spurred me on to just to respect myself again, to be honest. He was from, even before that, going to that race, he was at me like, get out of the house, like there's still so much you can do. And when I was in those insecure moments, and he was the one, picking me up and putting that confidence back in me. And he took me to the gym after that meeting with Booty and threw me back on the bench and got me back involved. And I'm very proud that I've got myself to the point. A couple of days ago, I was able to bench 120 kilos. So it's a long way from.
I did see that. I did see that on Instagram. I saw some footage of you on the bench press, and I was extremely impressed.
So it was a bit of a meathead thing, but it was it was special just in more so from where it was. I think to go from that point where the first day Matt took me to the gym and he put me on the bench, and I couldn't feel I didn't have the proprioception to know where my legs were, and I was falling off the bench and I couldn't lift more than the barbell, and so yeah, it was pretty cool.
Oh, that's amazing. That's an incredible story, Sam, and I said it before, but I couldn't be more grateful for you sharing that story so generously, and you're a wonderful, wonderful person, a great inspiration. So, and that's not why you do it but you're a wonderful inspiration. So thank you, mate. It's been a very special hour to spend with you.
No, thank you for having me, and I love the podcast. So look forward to listening to many more.
Can I be a fascination point? 'Cause you hold the feeling in the room. But you want the beat, I need the tune.
Well, I mean, there are a couple of times listening to that interview when I was driving as I was listening to that when you first recorded it and you guys sent it to me. And there were a few times where I physically took my hand off the steering wheel and put it to my chest, just in this sort of feeling of that just feeling of God, it's so, to be able to hear him talk about it and then to talk about the time after that. So yes, the moment on the track when he's had the accident, but then every single moment after that, and speaking to his fiance and thinking about his parents, and it was just unbelievable.
Yeah, and he's also the kind of person, when we finished the chat, I just wanted to keep talking to him. I love talking to him so much. He's such a lovely person. And it was late where he was, it was midnight. I was like, this poor guy wants to go to bed, but I'm really enjoying talking to him.
The themes in this, and I know Hugh, I mean, when I spoke to you after this, and the first thing that you said was you just wanted to talk about shame and how much of a issue this is in so many people's lives, and I've experienced it a lot and spoken about it on the podcast, but Sam's version of it is unbelievable.
Funnily enough, most people who have come on the podcast have actually brought up their shame.
True, yeah.
So the point that made me think about shame with Sam's interview is when he said that when his fiancée first came to the hospital, the first thing he said was, "We're not getting married," or "You're not marrying me."
Yeah.
And which is I was amazed that he actually shared that detail, but it comes back to shame. And we all have shame, and we don't have to have gone through a horrific accident like Sam did, but we all have some level of shame in us. We have a shame story, I suppose. Shame is the intensely painful feeling that we're unworthy of loving and belonging. Or I suppose you could say shame is the intensely painful feeling that we're just not enough. Mm-hmm. We're all hardwired for connection. We're put on the planet to connect, and we feel like we need to connect to survive. But there's always that fear that we actually aren't worthy of the connection. It could be a moment that pops up, like a moment that arises suddenly. You might be hanging out with your friends and you make a joke or you say something and people don't laugh or people aren't listening, and you just have this this awful feeling in your gut of I shouldn't have said that and I'm an idiot, and then maybe those people don't like me or they don't. You just have this they can pop up like that. But it can also be an ongoing feeling or an ongoing story that you have been marinating in your entire life.
Yeah.
Which and it's sort of, I mean, you shared yours in your episode. I suppose.
Well, it was like the way that sorry to just jump in quickly,
That's
but
right.
the way that I learnt about it was from when you put me in touch with Ben Crow, who
Yeah.
we've spoken about a few times on the podcast. And Ben Crow just helped me so much in and he introduced me to the idea, not the word shame, but what the true meaning of shame, I guess, he really explained to me. And the way that he explained it to me and the way that I then sort of came to understand it through reading Brené Brown and watching her TED Talk and is it's like what you're saying, but it's the thing about yourself that you believe to be true but isn't true. It's the negative feeling about yourself that you think is true, like I'm dumb or I can't no one's going to love me, I'll never get married. All those negative feelings, and that's not true. Like, it's a completely subjective feeling, but you believe it's so true for you. It's so real for you.
Yeah, and you're absolutely spot on. I mean, this is all Brené Brown stuff. If you want to know more about this, she is the world-leading researcher in shame. So shame is the voice that in your head that says things, like you're not very smart, you didn't do very well at school. You remind yourself at key junctions in your life, you're trying to do something, and this voice pops up. You're not very smart, or maybe it's something like you're not good looking enough, or you're actually not a very committed parent, or there's awful things that pop up with shame.
Mm-hmm.
Shame could be a voice in your head that says, "I know what happened to you when you were a child." As a result of I heard Oprah Winfrey talking about shame in this respect, saying that people who survive sexual assault, it's actually not the sex part of it that nearly kills them; it's the shame they carry with them. But I want to talk about but I want to talk about that a little bit later, I suppose, as far as how we actually can deal with our shame. But it's important to understand that shame has a very strong correlation with depression, anxiety, addiction, violence, suicide. When we carry shame and let it run our lives, it is insidious. There's an AFL footballer I talked to a lot, and he's now retired in the last couple of years, and he said, "Please feel free to share my story." But he would rather his name was he was anonymous. And when he came out of the AFL, he became extremely anxious and depressed. And we talked a lot about his shame, and his shame. He said, for me, I have a memory as a kid. I remember I could make mum and dad so happy, and the way I did that was playing really good football. If I played well, mum and dad would say, my siblings were happy, my friends were happy, everyone was so proud of me. And then I as a kid, I became older, became better at footy, and then played AFL, and everyone was just, and I had to tell myself this story that to be worthy of love and to be worthy and to belong and to fit in, I had to be really good at football. And then age 30, I stopped playing football, and I can't work out why I'm so depressed, because everyone's like, "Oh, it's because you're not playing footy." And I know that, but I didn't understand why. And the whole conversation with him is about realizing that you're worthy. Like, we're all worthy of love and affection. We don't have to be the best footballer, the funniest person, as we talked about in your episode, the best looking. We're all worthy of love and affection. But I've had my own shame story. We all have different shame that pops up throughout our life. In my early 20s, it won't surprise Josh to know this, but like, I had massive shame over my hair. Like, I had really thinning hair at a young age. I was probably and I didn't realize it, because at school everyone was used to what I looked like. But then I went to uni. People just kept talking about it, and I felt like. I remember the first lecture I went to, I didn't know anyone. I was doing a course called Neuropsychophysiology at Swinburne Uni, didn't know a single person. And I sat down there, I felt really like shy and vulnerable, and I was like, oh my gosh. And there was this group of girls sitting behind me, and one of them I heard one of them say, "There's no way he's 18. He's 30 at least." And I was like, oh. And I remember going, God, who are they talking about? And I'm looking around going, and they were quite loud, and this girl goes, and then this girl said, "He'll be bald by the time we've got our degree. I guarantee it. There's nothing surer." And I'm looking around going, oh my God, that's me. And I had this feeling of like, I'm just not I just I'm never going to find a partner. Like I'm never going to meet anyone. Like I'm ugly. Like I've got on my hairs. So we all have that sort of shame story. And I'll talk about how you work your way through it and how I accidentally work my way through that. But just on shame, so I know people are sitting here thinking, what's my shame and do I have shame? It's anything that you feel, it's just something you feel ashamed about that you don't talk about and you think it's going to, disconnect you from opportunities or people or,
and I think it's probably because often correct me if I'm wrong, but often this thing that you tell yourself, the voice in your head that you believe to be true, whatever that is, often does come from like a singular event in your past, like something that happened to you or something that someone said. And I think it's just maybe just an opportunity to say like why, if you can do therapy, if you can speak to a psychologist or anything, that's when it can be really helpful, I think, to be able to go back and figure that stuff out.
Totally.
And would that be fair to say?
Well, let's talk about what breeds shame or what shame really grows off, and then we can talk about how you kill shame because there are steps that you can. And again, this is all Brené Brown stuff. If you want to look her up later, but. If you want to look her up, everyone probably knows Brené Brown. But here are the three things that really feed shame. And when you hear these things, that makes sense. That's what I've done to my shame. So they are secrecy, silence, and judgment. So you think about the things we're really embarrassed about, things we want to talk about. We don't tell anyone. And they just sit there and they fester, and then with that comes judgment about I'm not a good person.
Why don't we? What is the reason for that? Like, why don't we tell?
I think because we're fearful of disconnection. We feel like if we tell people those things, it makes it even more real. Then they know it, and they know your shame, and they're going to feel the same judgment towards you.
And you'll think that's when they look at you or talk to you, you'll think that that's all they're thinking.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and so secrecy, silence, and judgment. They're the things that really we don't tell anyone. We keep it really quiet, and then we kind of judge ourselves because we're the only ones we've got to discuss it with.
So when you say judgment, you mean it's judgment of yourself?
Yeah. So it's it's an AFL football I was talking about before, just saying I'm actually not good at anything. The only thing I was good at is football. Now I can't do it anymore. Whereas the antidote to shame, the thing that kills shame, and shame cannot survive when you put these things in a mix. So first of all, knowing your shame. And that's where I think what you said is really powerful. If you can't think of what your shame might be, seeing a professional, a psychologist is massive because you may not know you've done such a good job blocking it out. You may not be able to think about what it is. But so know your shame triggers. So for me in my 20s, it was stuff around my hair, and then, there's other stuff I can go into another episode about me, which I'm sort of working through at the moment. But so know what your shame is. Be aware of it. Maybe as a mum right now, you feel this could be for any mums listening. Maybe you feel like it could be something like I'm not a very present mum at the moment because we're in lockdown. I feel really desperate to connect with my friends, but I keep getting stuck on Instagram. I can't get off my phone. I feel like I'm not very present for my kids, and you might feel shame about that. But you don't admit that to your friends because you've got to put on a front that, yep, I'm in control. We're doing heaps of arts and crafts at home. The kids are doing great homeschooling. We're going really well. So know what your shame is. Know what your shame triggers are. The second one is to reality check it. So by reality check that, I mean describe your situation as if you were describing it to your best. Describe your shame. I'll try and give my example to make it make sense. But let's say I'm worried about like my hair being really thin or losing my hair, whatever, in my 20s. And then my best mate comes to me. Actually, ironic because my best mate also was very thin hair as well. But if my best mate came to me and said, I'm going bald, I'm never going to meet someone. No one's going to love me. I'm going to be alone because I'm going bald at such a young age. How am I going to meet someone? I wouldn't say to him, yep, definitely, mate. There's no way you'll ever meet anyone. Yeah. I would say to him, don't be ridiculous. You are honestly the funniest person I've ever met. You are such a loyal friend. And I would just reel off all the stuff he's good at. So that's how you can reality check your shame.
And it's easy to do that about someone else, obviously.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, you would never say, sometimes we say stuff to ourselves like, you're an idiot. You are so stupid. Yeah. But for the very same thing, if your best mate came to you and said that, you wouldn't say, you are an idiot. Shut up. You're so stupid. Or you are so ugly. You're right. You would, so reality check it by pretending your best friend or maybe even your child. Like,
it'd be such strange best mate behavior. It'd be so strange.
You might fall off the best mate perch if that was your response.
Yeah, it's not going to keep you high on the best mate list, that's for sure. You idiot. You're right. You're an absolute loser. Give up now. Wow. Okay.
So number one, know your shame. Number two, reality check it. So pretend it's your best friend telling you that. Number three, and this is a bit of a jump because this requires you then reaching out to someone. Now, not everyone has earned the right to hear your shame story. There might only be 2 or 3 people in your life that you know that you can talk to about your shame. And then the fourth one really goes with reach out, but it's tell your story. So
when you say on that third one, so do you mean, just to be really specific, do you mean like literally like call someone or message someone for the sole purpose of telling them what your shame is, in the hope that they'll give you positive affirmation to kind of change your mind? Is that what you mean?
Empathy. They'll give empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy. Shame cannot survive when empathy's around.
Mm-hmm.
It just can't. So, and this is again what all Breno Brown's research has pointed at. But and it is every single episode of Oprah, like you watch Oprah.
You've seen every single episode?
No, I don't know if anyone has. Probably Oprah hasn't seen every episode. But
amazing achievement.
but people will go on and share their story, and often it's for the first time, and they leave just so much lighter because of the experience. But I'm not saying find a international audience, a global audience, and tell everyone. But who is the person in your corner who has earned the right to hear your shame story? And it could be it could be a brother or sister. You know, I think for me, Josh and Penny are probably the first. I mean, I've been going through site counselling, and Ryan Shelton is in this. Yes, all of you on the podium.
Thank
all of you on the podium.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you so much. Wow, unprompted and everything. That's amazing to be considered one of your close friends. Thank you.
So Penny, Ryan, and Josh all on the podium together. The people who earned the right to hear my shame story. But I've been going through a whole process of seeing a psychologist this year, and it's been so incredible. And it took us 6 hours, like 6 sessions worth to get to the actual. I remember I started talking about something. She goes, "Stop, we've got it. We've unravelled it. We got there. A bit of a performance the last 5 sessions, but we've got there. I can tell just by looking at you." And I was like, "Oh my God, you're amazing."
Yeah.
I said, "What do I do this now? Like, what do I have to do with this? Like, I don't know what I." And then she said, "You need to reach out." Sorry to bore you, Josh.
Sorry, I'm a bit tired.
Hey, so Josh, one of the top tips of having a microphone: don't yawn, mate. During the most important part of the episode.
Also, when he's telling me that I've got the right to hear his shame, and I'm yawning through. She's not much support if you're number 2 on the list, doesn't listen.
God, I know. I feel like I've just jumped up a level.
Up goes Ryan to number 2. Yes. Oh dear. So reach out and tell your story. Now, in the 2 examples I've just given about myself and an AFL footballer, I didn't mean to, but I kind of discovered that the best way to make me feel better was to start joining in on the joke about my hair, start talking about it more and actually being in on it rather than kind of like, wearing a hat everywhere. And then I remember telling mum and dad, like I told mum and dad I used to pretend I didn't care and it's totally fine, but I told mum and dad, I just said, I hate that I'm going bald. Like every time like I read a book, like, this is a hair fall all the time. And mum said, "It's your grandpa's fault. He was bald when he was 16. And she was genuinely angry at him. Like she was genuinely angry at her dad. She goes, "It's not your fault. It's your grandpa's fault. You've got his hair." And I remember going, "Okay, well, I'm doing all right. I've still got some hair and I'm 20 and he was 60. Okay, so that's good." And she said, we can go to the doctor. Like you can get tablets that stop it. And I was like, "What?" And I went to the doctor and he put me on these tablets that stop your hair falling out. And I didn't really lose hair since then. And then my friends, I can't remember who came up, maybe it was me, I came up with the term hair pingers, these tablets for your hair to stop them falling out. And ever since I had that, like being able to call it hair pingers and tell people I take these tablets, the shame was gone because I gave it oxygen. It was out there, and shame can't survive And because people would like go, oh, like my mates would go, they'd feel sorry for me and I'd hear it and they'd give me a lot of shit about it, but I knew they'd feel sorry for me and we'd talk about it. It was out in the open. My mum was like, I'm really sorry, darling. And that shame went. Like it was gone because I just brought it out and I kept it. I got rid of the silence that went with it and the judgment that I gave myself that you're not worthy of connection because you're going bald.
You know what is like crazy? Like my heart is racing at the moment because I take those tablets every day.
You do?
Yeah, every day.
They're working.
And I've never spoken about it ever. And I had the same, like I've been listening to this whole time and I had the same shame. Like I was losing my hair probably, like years ago. And then someone told me and I was so shameful about it and I hated it and I didn't know what to do. I was panicking. And I was like, and this is when I was on, like if you go back and watch me on Rove, if you go back and watch me on Rove, like the first year, I reckon, or even the second year, no, actually the whole time I was on Rove, if you compare, you'll see that I was like thinning, like, you know, on around pointing it towards like above my, you know, the side bits.
The car parks, yeah.
The car parks, yeah. And I didn't know what to do. And a friend of mine said, well, you know, have you tried, I forget.
Hairpingers. It's
called hairpingers. Have you tried hairpingers? And I was like, oh, I've heard about them, but do they really work? And he was like, yeah, they can work. And then I was like, okay. And then I went and I got some. And then like months later it was working. And I was like, this is amazing. Now I never have to tell anyone.
Well,
now I never have to reveal it. And I hate to steal the spotlight from you here, but it's like, I was just like, for the last 5 minutes, I'm thinking, do I say or do I not say?
Gosh. All I feel like saying is they are definitely working.
And no one would know now. And people do often say to me, God, you've got good hair.
Yeah.
And I'll just go, oh, thanks. Well, because there's this weird shame around losing hair that is, I mean, it doesn't look, you know, because like people that we look at, like whether it be actors or models or what is considered a good-looking person, a good-looking man has hair more often than not. Well, and which is not true, but it's like that's the shame.
Yeah, totally.
And that's the thing. And because I was on TV and I'd watch myself back and I'd be like, oh God. And it was sort of at a time as well when I'd broken up with my girlfriend, so I was like single for the first time in 8 years.
Yeah,
and it was just, and I was like, no one's going to want to be with me. Yeah.
But the funny thing is, I'm looking at the two of you the whole time, going, well, God, these guys won't get this because they've got ridiculous hair, and there you are. But I mean, everyone listening to this, you know, you might be a female with voluminous hair going, I can't relate to this, but we all have something that when we see a photo of ourselves, when a photo's taken of us, we look at the photo. There's always one thing we look for straight away. Like we always look for something straight away. We check it straight away. And for me, for a long time, it was hair. It was like, do I look bald in this photo? And so your shame might be the thing that you look for straight away when a photo's taken. Like what's popped up for me here. But there you go. Wow. Well, incredible. You've told your story.
I mean, it is weird now that even though this isn't live, like I still have the chance to beg Josh to delete it. Yeah. But I don't think I will, because it is the truth is like up until I actually said that out loud, I was like, oh God, this is going to be bad, because if I say this, the moment I say it, I can never take it back, and then people will know.
Yep.
It just reminded. I figured now that I'm on this, I'm on a shame roll. I feel like so with the hair loss thing, what I did for such a long time is to get my tablets, my hairpingers, I would go to the same chemist because I, for whatever reason, felt like I could trust that the chemist wouldn't tell anybody. And this chemist was like 40 minutes away from my home. There's a number of chemists in my vicinity that I feel like it would have saved me hours and hours, but I kept driving all the way across town to this single chemist because I was like, oh no, this is safe here. He's not going to tell anyone. And then I remember going one day and that chemist had his day off. I was like, is Craig here? Or whatever, let's call him Craig. Is Craig? No, Craig's not here. I was like, okay. Don't panic.
Have any soothers, mate?
Yeah. Don't you have any condoms?
Dear.
So God, it is amazing what shame and that secrecy and that need to not tell anyone will make you do. But it's like it's the same when I spoke about jealousy and the envy stuff in my episode, regarding like Hamish and other comedians. It's like I can't let people know because they'll think I'm I don't know, weak or it's just such a gross thing. And jealousy, I guess, is a big shame as well, isn't it? I mean, that's probably right up there as a shameful feeling. But now that I've said it, I mean, it feels. I'm still a little bit nervous about it, but it feels lighter. I just before I said that before, my heart was pounding, and I was quite. It was a weird feeling. I feel like I'm in a dream. It's a weird thing because it's something that I just haven't told anyone. I just don't tell anyone.
We all feel shame about something in the way we look, and most people wouldn't even notice it, but we feel like it's the only thing people notice. And I think the more we give air and oxygen to those, whatever the shame is, we unburden ourselves of that shame. And I said before, shame leads to, and it's. And I mean, people might think, what, losing your hair won't lead to this stuff, but it's things like shame will lead to things like anxiety, depression, addiction, all those kind of things.
But I think that I feel like it's important actually to say now with our hair loss thing, talking about it is obvious. It lifts a burden that you're carrying around, like that shame. But luckily with something like hair loss, you can just take a tablet and it can fix it more often than not. But I think it probably is important to say that a lot of people's shame can't be fixed with a tablet. It is about the vulnerability and the sharing, because there's no tablet for jealousy. There's no tablet for that sort of envious feeling or whatever it is anyone's going through that can't be fixed with a quick.
I think it's a really good point, and I'm not. The point of this is not to say that the shame of my hair loss went away because I took tablets. It's because I started talking about it. Yeah. I talked about it, and I think also really important to come back to the interview we just listened to say we are absolutely not downplaying the shame that Sam would feel, anyone would feel. I think if you were an athlete who identified as, he's a supreme athlete in the absolute pinnacle of his career, who probably, we didn't discuss this, but I'm guessing a lot of his identity was wrapped up in being an elite sports person, to then not be able to look after, to not be able to tie up your shoelaces, to not be able to go to the bathroom by yourself, all that kind of stuff. Of course, there's going to be a huge amount of feeling not worthy and shame attached to that. And, the character Booty Barker, what an incredible character to hear
Booty.
about. And I love that. I do think though, to give Sam credit here, I think he had the resources within him to bounce back and to get to that point by himself, but he just happened to meet this incredible person, Booty Barker, who I think who modeled to him as a kid. Sam goes to a BMX track and he says to his mum, he's a 7-year-old, who says, I want to be that. Mum, I want to be a professional BMX rider. And now I think he was 25, 26 years old, he's paralysed and he's in a terrible place. And then he sees this man who he says, I'm going to be that. And just like that, he sort of flicks a switch. And I think he started talking about, it sounds like he and his brother opened up a lot more conversations around his condition, and he just saw what he wanted to be, and he set his sights on it. So I don't want to downplay. I don't want anyone to think that we are saying, our hair loss is just like Sam's story. Gosh, far from that. I'm just trying to give people, I suppose it's hard to relate to Sam's situation in a way, what he's been through. I think I'm just trying to give a few more relatable situations, I suppose. And I mean, you can't just get up and start yelling your shame out to the world and telling everyone. You need to be very careful with who you choose. And
Thanks for telling me that after I just announced the hair loss thing on a podcast to thousands of people I don't know. Cheers, mate.
Could have led with that.
Yeah. I've literally just revealed a deep, dark shame of mine.
Sorry, let me reword that. I mean, hey, I started by saying that people would go on Oprah and tell the whole world what they're going through.
Yes.
I don't think we have quite that audience here, but I'd like to think that we have a beautiful audience out there in our podcast land, and I think our podcast audience have certainly, would be a great audience to share what you just shared.
Yeah. Oh, good. Thanks. Phew. We have gone on a tangent talking and made what is what was quite an amazing story from Sam. I managed to somehow make it about me at the end, so sorry about that. But I felt like I couldn't not say it in the moment, considering we were talking about what we were talking about. But bringing it back to Sam at the end, like, I mean, the fact that he's now, like, it's such a beautiful ending to that story. The fact that he's now coaching his wife, it really is a beautiful ending. And I think in a time like this, I mean, you talk so much about gratitude in your work, Hugh, and I think if you didn't get gratitude from that story, it's just, especially in a time like this, it's pretty important. Yeah, it'll be one of the great highlights of my year, getting to spend an hour chatting with Sam. And I think if you want to follow him on his social media, Sam Willoughby, he's quite an inspirational person to follow, and I certainly felt a lot better from interviewing, and I listened back to the interview the night that we did it. Josh sent it through to us, and I was cleaning up, sort of pottering around the house cleaning up, and I was feeling very moved by listening to him back again. So an incredible story, and a huge thanks obviously to Sam and his team. He's got a wonderful, wonderful crew around him, and I think that's something we didn't get to talk about today, but having good people in your corner and knowing your people, his wife, his brother, his parents, Booty Barker, all of them. Anyway. Hooroo.
Okay, bye. That was an abrupt end. Yeah, see you next time. Bye.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
See you guys. Hugh, it's Ryan Shelton from the podcast, obviously. Hey, that was amazing. I just love Sam Willoughby so much. I don't care who knows it. But no, I just wanted to ring and say thanks for that. I obviously got a lot more out of that episode than I was expecting. So just wanted to say thanks for being you, as always, and allowing me to be vulnerable like that. That was great. It was just one of those weird things. It's such a secret for so many years for me, and now it doesn't feel like a big deal at all. It's pretty amazing. I was actually tossing up whether or not I should have also admitted that I've been stealing money out of your wallet without you knowing for the last year, but I wasn't sure if that's shame or if that's something else. So if you give me a call back, that'd be awesome. Thanks, mate. It's Ryan Shelton from the podcast, obviously, the Imperfects that we co-host together. Bye.
To call back, press 2-2. To replay message, press 1 to reply.
If this episode has triggered anything for you around mental health, we strongly recommend Lifeline on 131114. The Imperfects is brought to you by the Resilience Project, produced by Ryan Shelton, Josh and Hugh Van Kylenberg. Mixed and mastered by Windmill Audio. A very special thank you also to No Mono for allowing us to use their track Keep On as the theme for this podcast.
I hear the echo down the hall, like you were never there at all. Just leave me down here.